Hello, everyone. Welcome to Garden State Greenlight, a podcast by ROI-NJ, examining the business, policy, and economic forces shaping New Jersey's film and television industry. I'm your host, Thomas Phillip, multimedia journalist for ROI, as well as a filmmaker and overall film enthusiast, and I'm incredibly excited to bring you this episode. Today's guest is Doreen Sayegh. Doreen is the owner of the Cranford Theater. She's also on the board of directors for the Garden State Film Festival. She's a champion of the shared movie-going experience. Doreen, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here and talk all things movies and movie theaters and filming in New Jersey with you today.
Yes, my favorite things to talk about. So this is great. So to start, tell us a little bit about the Cranford Theater and your role there. What initially drew you to the business?
Yeah, so actually, I grew up in movie theaters. My family owned movie theaters since I was a young child. I've grown up running up and down, aisles of movie theaters and hanging out behind the concession stand with the team. Barely could see over the candy stand myself. Um, and so I worked my way up the ranks, working for my dad in all of his theaters across New Jersey for the past few decades. And the Rialto Theater in Westfield and the Cranford Theater came into our family back in the around 1996, 1997. We operated those theaters, and then we sold the operation in 2010, but held on to the properties. And so the theater at that time it turned over three different times. It was acquired three different times. So we had different tenants in there. And unfortunately, in 2019, the theaters were then unfortunately abandoned. And I saw a great opportunity. I mean, I see a great opportunity in every theater, but when you're one person, it's kind of hard to take all that on. So I saw this great opportunity in downtown Cranford. The theater is kind of nestled away from the highway and from, major competitors. And so, and Cranford had really changed, downtown Cranford. And so I decided to renovate and reopen the theater in 2019. Unfortunately, 4 months before COVID hit. So we did a full renovation in October. We reopened on November 8th, 2019, and 4.5 months later, COVID shut us down. And so it was a tough time, and we had to get very creative. And I think that's what COVID really did for all of us, right? It made us very creative. We went into survival mode. We wanted to keep our staff working. We wanted to pay our bills. The expenses don't stop. So we started selling concessions to go, and we opened up a temporary drive-in that we were able to operate for 2 years. The first one lasted for 6 months, 6 nights a week. And then the second one in 2021 ran through the summer. And as we phased that out, we reopened the theater in September of 2021 and started to welcome guests back into the indoor theater. And then the industry took a couple hits. There were some, writer strikes and actor strikes. But really just goes to show you how resilient our industry is and the movie theater business is, that we just kept finding ways. And that's what I love about the Cranford Theater story, right? It continues to have such a great comeback story, and it's fought through so many changes over the decades. So my role now is I'm the sole owner and operator of the Cranford Theater.
As you mentioned, the movie theater business has gone through so many changes. COVID, obviously, huge change. What have you seen change the most from the perspective of a theater owner?
So, I mean, I have seen a lot of changes, and, things were challenging before COVID, mainly because of, streaming being introduced into our lives and the convenience of streaming and just ordering movies and shows at home right off of your remote control. So I would say that was like the biggest change that we've encountered. And, we've also seen shorter theatrical windows. Back when I was younger, you had to wait months before a movie came out, back then on VHS, to date myself here. But you had to wait months. So if you didn't see it in the theater right away, you knew you were going to be waiting a long time. And that drove people to the box office faster and sooner because they didn't want to wait that long. Now we're seeing shorter windows, which really does hurt us on the theatrical side, because sometimes people are like, well, I could just wait until it's on TV. And what I'm here to say is, yes, you can do that. Yet you're not going to get the experience that you get in a theater. with 200 other people in the dark, experiencing the same storytelling and emotions that you would. You're not going to get that at home on your couch. So yes, it's convenient, it's great, but it's not the same.
Well, what do you think it is that still brings people out to the theater?
I think part of it is the nostalgia and the tradition. I think we're seeing a lot more young people coming back to theaters. Um, and I think there's just a lot of films that they're just meant for the big screen. I mean, movies originally were, filmmaking began here in New Jersey, right?
Right.
So, and I think movies were meant to be seen together on the big screen. And I think after COVID, where we spent so much time alone and secluded, I think people now, here we are years later, people want to do things together. They want to experience things together. It's much more fun to experience a movie, together in a room with people that are laughing and jumping and screaming and getting suspense at the same time you are. And I think there's something truly special about that. And I just feel like, with our theater, we're a community theater. We're right in the heart of downtown Cranford. I always call us the community hub, right? You come there, you might know somebody there. You might walk out with a new friend. I mean, I see my daughter do it all the time. She sees other kids coming into the lobby and she makes friends right away. And it's like new relationships are born. And I feel like we're such a cozy, warm, family-friendly theater that, you could come alone and still feel like you're part of the family, right? We have such a wonderful team of employees, young adults. I just feel like everybody feels welcome at our theater. So, and I think that's something very special too, that people look for. They're looking, we're all looking for an experience, right? And that's one of the things that we focus on at the Cranford Theater is creating experiences around movies, around independent films, around documentaries. For example, today we kick off 100 days to 100 years. So we're rolling up on our centennial this November, and today is 100 days out. So we have a special Paddington 2 community event, completely complimentary. We're going to have face painting, balloon animals, temporary tattoos. Paddington will be there for photos on the red carpet. And what's truly special about today's kickoff is that we kick off our 100 days of collection for our time capsule. So we invite and encourage the public to contribute a sentiment, a note, a card, a drawing, a coloring, whatever it is that you want to contribute and be part of our time capsule. And then on November 30th, one day after our 100-year anniversary, we'll bury our time capsule and hopefully reopen it in 25 years from now. So everything we do is about the community. And I think that's something too that's part of how we're evolving and changing. Movie theaters were always part of their community, but I feel like now more than ever, especially after COVID, we are constantly on a mission to bring our community together and create experiences and events, and not just in that sense, also ways to fundraise, help us help others is, something that we started during COVID, where, a lot of families, a lot of people were struggling to put food on the table or school supplies. So every year we host multiple fundraisers. This year, for example, we hosted a toy drive. We hosted a book drive. We also the most recent was a toy drive to celebrate Toy Story 5 opening in theaters. And we kicked off our toy drive for 2 months, and all of those toys went to support the Children's Specialized Hospital. So we're not just, we're primarily movies, but we're not just movies. We're everything community. We're anything and everything we can do to bring people together and to support each other, because we're all in this together.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think people crave that communal experience now more than ever, which is really wonderful that you guys are bringing people together. So, how important are the movies themselves to the success of a theater today? Like, are there certain types of films you've seen consistently bring people through the doors?
I've noticed since the Cranford Theater has been in our family for 28 years now or so, I've seen the shift. The theater was, and I speak specifically about this theater, but I'm sure it affects all theaters. The Cranford Theater primarily used to play art movies. And now with the shift in demographics in the community, we have more families, we have more young children. So we had to evolve our programming to accommodate our audience and to give our audience, we always try to have something for everyone, whether it be a special event or, movies that are coming out in theaters. But I've noticed that we have a lot of families and a lot of children. We have every audience, but that is our biggest demographic, our families and young children. We also have our senior citizen audience. So we just try to mix up what we have to be able to give the community what they want. And I think that's also very key too, is you have to listen to your community, and you have to listen to, and my dad taught me this a long time ago. He's like, if I booked my theaters based off of the movies that I liked, he's like, I would have been out of business a long time ago. You know, it's what do my customers want? And not just that, it's speaking to our customers, getting to know them. What would you like to see here? What can we bring here that will make you happy and keep you bringing back? So I think there's a lot of elements that, 20, 30, 40 years ago, it was very easy. You played whatever you got your hands on, you put movies into your theaters, you opened the doors, you popped fresh popcorn, you provided a clean theater, people came. It's not so easy anymore. We're up against a lot of forms of entertainment, mainly streaming. And the other part of it too is not just streaming, it's the way humans are consuming entertainment these days, and just to kind of bounce back to one of your first questions, I think because we spend so much time on devices and phones and computers, people crave wanting to come together and come out and do these things that put you in a communal experience with others, because we spend so much time, and we have during COVID spent a lot of time alone.
The Cranford Theater, locally owned theater, there's been a lot of discussion about the importance of independent, locally owned theaters. What do you think the Cranford Theater brings that a larger chain might not provide?
I mean, first, I would say that we have a lot of flexibility. I don't have to report to anybody. I can make decisions quickly. I don't have to ask anyone for anything. I can make changes as needed. I can do what I need to do to accommodate my public. So I think that is super helpful. The other is, our theaters, especially these hometown theaters, they're anchors for their communities, right? Because people come to the theater. And I could tell you, this happens almost every single day we're operating. Someone or everyone comes to the theater, and then they go out into the community and they eat and they drink and they buy an ice cream, or they walk around and they shop in our stores. And if they don't buy anything that day, what they have done is discover downtown Cranford. And that's when I say, like, we're all in this together. It's not just about the theater. We want to see our local businesses who have supported us through everything also do well. And I'll give you a prime example. During COVID, during our drive-in days, we hosted an event, and until today, one of my favorite events, and it was a Willy Wonka experience. And we wanted to do something with the Willy Wonka movie, and we wanted to do something with a golden ticket. And so I partnered up with our downtown director at the time, and we came up with this idea of selling the tickets to the drive-in that night to all the surrounding businesses, because we wanted to help draw business and, even though it was COVID and it was a very quiet time, the town in those 5 days that those tickets were being distributed was very active. People were coming from everywhere trying to hunt down a ticket, because that was the only way you could get in to see the movie that night. And so it was really fantastic to see the boom of people coming to town, visiting these shops, discovering our stores and our restaurants. So I think, these hometown theaters are huge anchors for their communities. And I could tell you, I've seen it in the past where I've seen theaters close. Right away, the surrounding businesses can feel the ripple effect. Because you have to remember, a theater at one time could be bringing hundreds or thousands of people to one set of shows, So we could have hundreds of people in the building at one time. Those hundreds of people are then going out into the community. And it's just really wonderful to see our businesses around us being supported. And so, I feel like we have a responsibility, right, to our community. And that's what really puts the fuel in the fire,
Right.
the community support and wanting to make sure that everybody around us is thriving also.
Absolutely. It's more than a place to just watch a movie and
Oh,
get a
yeah.
tub of popcorn. It's a place where people come together, and
It
it's
has
incredible.
far evolved from being just, and it's not, like I said, movies are our primary business, but we've evolved into comedy shows, film festivals, independent filmmaker screenings, red carpet events. One of my favorite things to do is where I like to link up what's happening in New Jersey right now with all of this film production and host special screenings of films that are filmed in New Jersey and are being released in movie theaters and celebrate that. Bring the two worlds together to celebrate this great movie that's filmed in New Jersey. And I have to tell you, people get very excited about movies filmed here in New Jersey, because who doesn't want to spot a landmark or their town or the house that they know that the movie was filmed in on the big screen? So I think it's very fun and exciting, and it's only getting better every day.
I would like to talk a little bit more about how New Jersey has been, making a major push to grow its film and television industry. From your perspective, where do movie theaters fit into that larger ecosystem?
I always say movies were made for the big screen, right? You want every movie made to end up in a movie theater where people can experience it together, on this huge screen with this amazing sound. And I think there's just a natural tie and a natural relationship between the two, right? Between the creation of the films and then the exhibition of the films, especially here in New Jersey right now, where our film commission and the state has done such an incredible job, of drawing so many productions to our state. And I think there's a great opportunity here for movie theaters, right? And we need to maximize that and make sure that we're especially playing every movie that was filmed in New Jersey on our screens. Because like I said, that people get excited knowing that this movie with, let's say Bradley Cooper or Anne Hathaway, who's filmed a lot here in New Jersey, is now coming to theaters. And you get to go and you get to gather your friends and your family and go experience it on the big screen. And then, try to spot the locations. And we try to do that, with our guests. Like when we're playing a movie that filmed in New Jersey, we're like, oh, let us know what you spot in New Jersey that looks familiar. And so I think it's very exciting. And I think, we need to, I think both worlds, both industries need to come together, and support each other on this mission, because I think there's great opportunity for both.
Absolutely. And when you see the state displayed on the big screen, it's almost like a big advertisement for, New Jersey, which
Oh,
is really nice. You
yeah.
know,
And we always say, like, there's, any filmmaker can find anywhere in New Jersey and, make it work for their production. And
right.
the state and these our municipalities, they've been, supportive, and they've been welcoming, and it's made it easy for,
Mhm.
producers and directors to come to the state and want to film here. I know in Cranford, we have hosted multiple productions, at certain years. I mean, we had multiple productions in like one year, and the municipality makes it so easy, and so welcoming, that producers and directors and location scouts want to keep coming back. And you have to do that, you want, and it's great for local businesses, and we should touch on that because that's very, very important. I think all towns should want to be open to having filming in their municipality, because it really does bring business to town. You know what I mean? It gets people excited. And then you now have, cast and crew and everyone working on the film also going out in the community and eating and drinking and discovering. We've had, cast and crew for productions in Cranford, and I've heard them say, like, oh, I discovered the shop, I have like a clothing shop. They're like, I can't go today, but I'm going to come back because I saw some cute things in there. That's amazing to hear, right? Because now our local businesses are being supported by these huge productions that are coming to town. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. And I think it's so wonderful for the state because it also creates so many jobs. In regards to, what audiences want from theater, I think people are looking for experiences.
Mm.
And I think we've been very successful in that department by creating experiences around movies, and what it means to go to the movie theater. And I think, we're coming up on our 100 years. I'm very excited for the next 100 years. We're beginning, like, a really big chapter here. And I think we need to continue to evolve by creating experiences. And I feel like since COVID, people are, and I know myself too with my family, I'm looking for things that are more experiences that we can do together. And what more fun than coming together in the dark with a room full of complete strangers to experience, great movies on the big screen. And like for today, for example, we were sold out for our Paddington event. I'm super excited to welcome all these families and young children, and my daughter, who's about to be 5 years old. She's very excited. And it's really amazing to see these kids, and most of them don't know each other, right? And they come together and they become friends in the movie theater, which really, really, truly makes it a community hub. Um, so I think that's something that people are looking for, is a special experience. And we're all about making memories at the theater. We want every experience that you have when you come to the Cranford Theater to be magical and memorable. And I remember saying that to the mayor at the time when I reopened. I'm like, listen, I want to create memorable experiences for people at our theater. I want them leaving here feeling good and feeling like they're part of our family. Um, so I feel, that that's really important. I think the theater is a great place where people create traditions. And I think a great example is like Christmas. I always loved working Christmas night when I was a manager, because I loved seeing people come to the theater. They have family that have flown in or driven into town, and they all come to, have like a group of like 20 people coming. They're in their Christmas pajamas and they're coming to watch a movie together. And that's memorable. And another experience we create at the theater is we like to play a lot of classic films. So we take a movie like Singing in the Rain or Casablanca or A Miracle on 34th Street. And I always see our senior citizen audience coming to the theater. And a lot of times they bring their grandchildren. I'm like, oh, I always ask the same question, do you think that they'll be interested by this film? And I'm like, why did you bring the kids? And like, we want them to feel the way we felt when we saw this movie on the big screen. So you see it's tradition being passed forward. I have, employees who worked for me when they were 16, 17 years old, and now they have families and they're bringing their kids to the Cranford Theater. So really, we're a place of memories, we're a place of magic, we're a place of community. And I plan on continuing that as we go into our next century.
That's amazing. Clearly, these philosophies have led to incredible success for the Cranford Theater. When looking ahead, what do you think the movie theater business needs to do to remain relevant and successful for, the next 5 to 10 years or even 100 plus years?
What I think and what I know we need to do is we need to keep creating reasons for people to leave their home. And again, it goes back to creating the experience, creating the tradition, bringing community together. Come here and make a new friend with us. Come alone and still feel like you're part of our family. I think theaters need to be destinations. And that's my goal at the Cranford Theater. We want to be a destination. We want to be a destination for families, for children, for our senior audience, for teenagers that want to come out and see a horror movie, for filmmakers who are either looking to film their movie in a movie theater or they want to screen, and that I'm very passionate about, especially now, being part of the Garden State Film Festival and working with filmmakers. I see what goes into their productions, the heart they put into it, the passion, and they don't have multi-million-dollar budgets to work with. So we have created a home and an arena for them to showcase their films on the big screen, because it doesn't get any more authentic than that. It's very different than renting a projector and a screen in a room with fold-up chairs versus having the authentic feel of being in a movie theater, having a talk back after the film, engaging your audience. And, movie theaters too, like, I know for the longest time, people always thought, oh, movie theaters, they just show movies. People don't know how much goes on in theaters. They don't know that now. And I always, something that always like makes my heart so happy and gets me excited is when people are like, oh, I didn't know you could do that in a movie theater. I didn't know that you could have a piano recital in a movie theater. I didn't know that you guys do comedy shows. I didn't know that you guys do live music. We do save the dates on our iconic marquee for engagement photos. We do promposals. We pretty much can, whatever we can make fit in our boutique little theater, we will do. And it brings so much joy to people. And we love just putting happy things out into the universe and doing for others. What we also need to keep our theaters strong and surviving is we need strong films. We need original films. We need more young filmmakers. We just recently learned with Obsession and Back Rooms that we have young filmmakers who have driven, a young audience that's on their phones a lot or on iPads or on devices, and they came back to the theater to experience. So you have to give the people what they want. And you have to create the experience and you have to create the atmosphere. You have to have a clean theater. You have to have a friendly staff. You have to have good popcorn, which we take a lot of pride in. So I think there's a lot of elements, and yes, it can be done, but the model of how theaters were and how theaters are is changing, and it's changing every day. And as much as I feel like we're in a good place right now, we still have so much work to do. So it's, and this is my passion. I love it. I grew up in movie theaters. I have fantastic memories. My daughter now gets to grow up in a theater, which is another part of the fuel in my fire to keep this theater and all theaters around, because I want her to experience what I experienced growing up. And it truly is a magical place.
That is incredible. I also want to reemphasize the good popcorn. That's very
Yeah,
important.
it's very
Yeah.
important. Yes.
So you're clearly creating a lot of excitement for people walking through the doors. When you look at the future of the Cranford Theater specifically, what are you the most excited about?
Oh, well, I bullet it out because I do have a lot of things that I'm excited about. I'm
Sure, yeah.
excited that we're entering our next century in just a few months. And one thing I failed to mention is what I'm really excited. So today kicks off our 100 days. To celebrate our centennial this year, we are hosting a special screening of a movie called Padlocked, which is a black and white silent film. And it was the first movie to premiere at the Cranford Theater on November 29th, 1926 at 8 p.m., which was a Monday night. The theater back then was 1,300 seats, and it had a Wurlitzer organ that accompanied the film. So this year, on November 7th, we will be recreating that experience by showing Padlocked, which was recently, just within the last few years, restored by the San Francisco Film Preserve. And so I'm very excited that we'll be able to provide that experience and take our community back in time to experience what it would have felt like to be in the Cranford Theater 100 years ago, seeing Padlocked. So, those are the types of events that I see as part of the future and continuing to evolve in the theater business. I also want to continue, as far as the future of the theater, continuing to expand what a movie theater can be. And like I keep saying, primarily we're always going to be movies, but we have found ways to create events and experiences, whether it be with classic films or film festivals or comedy shows, to create additional, events, and things that get people out of their home and coming together with us to experience these things together. I'm excited to continue surprising people. Um, you know, Different events or fun things, or even like in fundraising. I feel like it gets people excited. It makes them feel like there's something, they're part of something bigger. I just truly enjoy bringing people together and, finding ways to make people happy and create magical and memorable experiences. The one too that it's very important to me is, the theater existed long before I did. So my hope and my goal is to leave it stronger and better. And when this theater, I recently been digging into the archives about the theater, and really, it's really interesting. This theater was the 44th theater in the circuit, 100 years ago, that was built. And originally it was called the Branford Theater. And everybody's like, well, why would they call it the Branford when it's in Cranford? It was actually named after another theater in the circuit. I believe that was in Newark. And then 2.5 months later, it was changed to the Cranford Theater, because I believe the Rotary Club at the time was really trying to encourage the owners to change it to Cranford, and it did. So there's a lot of history behind the theater. And one of the first managers of the theater, a gentleman named George Kelly, I actually found an article about him. He was very much about the community. So it's really special to me to see how like this theater has come full circle, from the way it started to here it is now going into its 100th year. And we are still all about the community. Just continuing to do bigger and better. And we just serve our community and serve our public and keep our guests happy.
Every time I walk into a theater, whether it's by myself or with, friends or family, it always feels like a spiritual experience. So I really appreciate everything that you're doing for the theatrical experience. It
Yeah.
means a lot.
Sometimes I feel like a big kid on the inside, right? Like, especially when now I get to take my daughter to the movies. And I just feel like I put myself in like the pace of a child, like how excited I used to get as a kid. and like your mom or your dad saying, "Oh, we're going to go to the movies." From the minute you know you're going to the movies, or really anywhere you're going that's going to be an experience, you get excited, right? From buying the tickets to buying the snacks to
Mhm.
picking your seats. And then when those lights come down and that picture hits the screen, that's where the magic begins, right? And I love when we host like first timers, right? Kids go into their first movies and the look on their faces, it's always magical and they're amazed. And that's why we continue to do what we're doing, because we want to create these memories for families, especially children. And, like, especially now with this filmmaking boom, you never know who's going to be, encouraged to go into the filmmaking world. So you just never know what's going to come out of your local movie theater.
Well, Doreen, this was an amazing conversation. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining me.
So
It
fun.
was a ton of fun, super informative. So I really appreciate your time. This was great.
No, thank you so much. I appreciate. I love talking all things movie theaters and filming, and just want to keep making people happy.